I discovered the 6 rules for achieving your goals, ensuring you never fail, and they're going to change the way you think about goal setting forever. Harvard did a study where they found that those who had written goals earned 10 times more than everyone else. And this is huge. It's been repeated by gurus like Tony Robbins and Zig Ziglar. And I'm sure this makes you want to write things down. But here's the thing. It's made up. The study has been widely discredited as false. Evidence from Harvard actually seems to suggest the opposite, that goal setting isn't some success cure-all. It can actually become dangerous, reduce your motivation, and increase the chance you engage in unethical behavior. So what's the truth? And how do you actually achieve your goals? Again, there's exactly 6 rules to follow. They'll change the way you think about goals forever, all the way down to the mistakes that you're making every day, the things stopping you from designing the life of your dreams, mistakes you don't even know you're making. My goal setting system has allowed me within 10 years to go from broke in a tiny town in rural Minnesota to getting a scholarship for essentially free college, where I then dropped out. But I did it to build, scale, and sell multiple home service businesses in my early 20s. I employed hundreds of people in that time, and I did that while building one of the most profitable channels on YouTube, generating more than $10 million, and doing so while simultaneously keeping up with my health, learning to play an instrument as an adult, and of course keeping my cats and my relationship alive. But here's the thing, I have results now, but I suck at essentially everything when I start, and I have a major problem that's kept me from reaching far higher levels of success, which I'm going to run through before the end of this video so you can avoid it. But one of the most important rules I've learned is about having broad and exact goals. When people set goals, they say things like, I want to be an Academy Award-winning actor by 2040, or I want to lose weight. The former is an exact goal. You want to be an actor, win an exact prize, and do it by an exact time. The latter is broad. You want to lose weight, that could be 1 pound or 40 pounds, who knows. On the surface, exact goals look better, but you actually need both. You remember the Fire Festival? They had that goal to make the biggest, most hype festival of all time. They had a date, they had an island, they had a celebrity backing. Their goal was exact. Everything was measurable. Progress could be achieved daily, but the festival, as we all know, was a complete disaster. Attendees were met with FEMA tents, packaged sandwiches, and a barren, desolate island nightmare. The event was canceled, and the founders were criminally investigated. So why did this happen? Well, despite having an exact goal, they didn't have a broad goal. That is, a healthy, broad goal that said, I want to create a high-quality business that adds value to my customers. The festival owners were so laser-focused on achieving their exact goal, they ignored the massive warning signs that suggested the whole project was unachievable and destined to collapse. The result? They failed to achieve their goal. They ruined their reputations and robbed thousands of people at the same time. A dramatic example, but it illustrates a key point that we all need to learn. Broad, healthy goals stop exact goals from imploding. Now, maybe your goal isn't to get a bunch of hot Instagram models on an island for a week. Who would want that, right? But more realistically, you might want to save $25,000 by the end of next year. A great exact goal. However, it can come with costs of its own. Maybe to save $25K, you'll end up working all the time. You'll never see your friends and family, or you'll become miserable in the process. Is that success? Maybe you want to lose 40 pounds in 2 months, but doing that could mean living off vegetable juice and consuming so few calories you end up wildly unhealthy. Is that success? Not really. Not unless you enjoy drinking vegetable juice, I guess. Broad goals like be healthy might sound too unspecific to actually achieve, but when combined with exact goals, they're incredibly powerful. The simple reason is they guide your exact goals within a wider framework that actually protects you from unintended consequences. Exact goals are like the GPS on your car. They tell you how to get where you want to go. But healthy, broad goals are like the sensors on your car that tell you you're about to rear-end a Toyota. You need both. And the smarter you make your exact goals, the better your GPS is. SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. They all combine to form the megazord of goal achievement. Here's an example. Let's say I want to write a 100,000-word book in 6 months. Right away, it's measurable. That's great. I need to sit down and type a certain amount of words per day. But how many? Well, we can break this down further. If I'm going to be done in about 6 months, I probably want the first draft complete in 90 days, which gives me a writing goal of just over 1,000 words daily. Now, from my experience, I know it takes me a few hours to write about 1,000 words. Is that achievable? Do I have a few hours every single day? For the sake of the example, we'll say yes. But if not, you need to amend the specifics of your goal. Now, I love reading and writing, so it's a pretty relevant goal to my life, one I care about, one that I have incentive to actually do. That's important. And it's time-bound. I know I have 6 months to do it, and I know the commitments it requires from me on a daily basis. This is a basic example, but see how SMART goals shape things up for us? They make your goals plausible, real, and achievable. By the way, I've created a free shareable goal template with examples specifically for this video. It'll help guide you through your personal goal creation all the way to making that thing happen. I built it on a site called Notion that's excellent for organizing thoughts and notes, and you can even use it to start entire businesses. I'll have that all linked down below. Now here's the kicker with my goal method. It's not enough to just be smart. This SMART goal might reliably make me write a book, but that doesn't mean the book's gonna be any good. Last thing I want is 2 stars on Amazon. What I need is to underpin my SMART goal with a broad goal, one that redirects my effort as I'm applying it. Something like, I wanna write something meaningful. I wanna write something genuinely helpful. I wanna write something I care about. Incidentally, that's what I did with this video. I wanted to give useful advice, like SMART goals and broad goals, but also more meaningful advice based on my own experience. That changed the way I thought about goals and this video entirely, but more on that later, because broad goals like write something meaningful aren't that helpful on their own. However, if my SMART goal starts to veer off the road, my broad goal is there to slap them around and keep them in line. This is the goal formula, a SMART exact goal plus a healthy broad goal. This is the only way to ensure your goals don't become toxic, that they don't encourage you to act unethically, and that they don't inadvertently make you unhappy without you realizing. It's exactly like that cliche dad who works so hard to provide for his kids, but that also means he never actually spends any time with his kids. This brings me to the most common illusion people get sucked into when thinking about goals, and that's the future. When you sit back and you dream about your goals, you think about what you want to achieve and what it might be like once that thing is done. You know, burnouts in your Lamborghini, diving in your mansion swimming pool, partying, all the perfectly standard fantasies. But here's the thing. These are just the results. They're far away, distant. You can't touch them yet. And they seem much bigger than anything you could possibly achieve right now, which is scary. But in reality, that distant achievement is made up of little tiny things you're doing right now, every day, on repeat. James Clear, he's the author of this book, Atomic Habits. He talks about having systems, not goals. Systems are ways of living, composed of habits, the things you do every day. In other words, by focusing on things you can do right now, you will create your future results. For example, if you want to create a successful business, you should read, you should measure everything, especially finances, and you should keep your emotions in check with things like exercise. Daily habits that build a system that allow you to then build a profitable business. And speaking of business, I'm launching a one-on-one service for entrepreneurs. Spots are very limited because I only have so much time in the day. And it's only for people who are serious about starting or growing a business. There will be a link in the description to apply. But back to building a foolproof goal system. The biggest takeaway is you must devote time every day to the factors that build you up to your larger goal. This is what people are talking about when they say 10,000 hours creates an expert. What they mean is that you've spent 10,000 hours engaging with a system of habits that gets you better and better at one larger thing. The reason a system is so important is number one, it takes so much time to achieve a difficult goal. And number two, you can only improve so much each day. The second one is super important to understand because you can get about 1% better at achieving your goal each and every day. You really can't move the needle that much, otherwise your goal's probably too easy. And I'm not just saying this, I've used this to success in my own life. I talk about it in this old cringy YouTube video of mine. I had 400 subscribers when I recorded this. Instead of looking at my ultimate goal or large goals like gaining hundreds or thousands of subscribers, which is a little bit daunting, I broke it down into small pieces and I thought, okay, what could I get on a daily basis that would eventually get my channel out to the most people possible? And I chose to go with increasing the number of subscribers to my channel by just 1% each day.
So starting out, when I started doing it, I was at 309 subscribers. So that's only 3 subscribers a day, which seems like that's gonna take literally forever to gain any traction. But the crazy thing with compounding numbers is it goes through the roof once it gets to a certain point. Yeah, it's only 3 a day for a while, but if you're able to do that for an entire year, it's something like 14,000 subscribers by the end of 1 year. If you're able to do it for 2 years, that's 440 some thousand subscribers. So if I get those 3 a day, I'm totally content.
I also focused on 1% daily hair gains, but that's another story. As you can see from the very start, I had a big long-term plan, but my focus was on small daily improvements. That's what I believe helped me grow so fast and learn how to eventually talk to the camera. I know those videos are hard to watch. If you're interested in starting a YouTube channel, I actually have a school that gives exact how-tos on how I did it that'll be linked in the description. And now here's a way more dramatic example of the 1% principle in action. When Dave Brailsford took over the British cycling team, they were in terrible shape. They hadn't won the Tour de France in over 100 years and had a single Olympic gold to their name. But Brailsford had an idea to turn them around. He started looking for small improvements everywhere he could. Better bike seats, better tire grip, different racing suits, better mattresses, seriously, each one making a tiny little small improvement. And the result? 5 years later, the Brits dominated the Olympics and won the Tour de France. Not as a result of one big thing, but hundreds of tiny improvements. And the same thing will happen to you if you focus on your 1% improvements each and every day. Well, probably not the Tour de France part, but whatever your goal is. Now here's the scary part. You can get 1% worse each day as well. And whether you're 1% better or 1% worse, those 1%, they're compounding each and every day. So as James Clear says, by the end of the year, you're either 37% better or you've declined down to 0. This should be terrifying because if you're not making 1% improvements, you might be getting worse every day and not even realize it. To avoid this, you want to break your goal down into a system of daily habits that ensures you slowly achieve your goals, making failure almost impossible. Now, this might be immediately obvious, like, writing every day if you're trying to be a writer. Makes sense. But it could be difficult. You might have to research the lives of people who have achieved the goal that you're trying to accomplish for ideas on what you should do every day. This will help you break it down into a system of habits that will grow your progress towards achieving that goal over time. But, and this is a big one, not all habits are equal. It's super important that you figure out what the biggest contributing habit is to your success. The Pareto principle states that 80% of your results will come from 20% of your inputs. You must know what your 20% is. That's the key to your successful future. In getting better at boxing, this would be sparring. In getting better at drawing, this would be actually drawing. In other goals, this could be far less clear. For example, I would argue that the 20% when it comes to becoming great at business is understanding how to measure and track your finances. If you can do that, you can probably be pretty good at business. You must find out what habit is going to impact your overall improvement the most. Then ensure it's the keystone of your daily system. Research has shown that habit formation takes 30 days to become unconscious. You need your habits to become unconscious. And this is just a nice way of saying it takes 30 days of repetition to make a habit much, much easier to do. Let that compounding work for you. So once you've got your system and its keystone, you want to repeat that for at least 30 days just to get the ball rolling. How often have you thought about achieving a goal and then thought about doing more to achieve that thing? More with your time, more with your day, more effort, pushing further and harder than anyone else to achieve your dream. Sounds logical, but hard to do, right? Well, yeah, it is, but it's also wrong. You don't simply do more. You actually do less, like a lot less, and let me explain. One day I went to an art event where this artist was showcasing her paintings. She was amazing, and she was taking questions from the audience. Everyone was just astonished by the art on display and couldn't believe the level of skill that she had. And one person from the audience, they raised their hand and they asked her how she did it and how she found the time to get this good at art. And the artist gave an answer that I'll never forget. She said, I have lots of things that I love to do every day, but I don't do them. I paint instead. Sometimes I'd rather do other things, but I always end up choosing painting. She was successful not because she did more, but because she said no to just about everything except her specific goal. If you want to achieve your goal, you don't just need a SMART goal or a daily habit system. You need to define what you must give up in order to make time for your goal. You need to define your sacrifices, because the simple truth is there's only so much stuff you can do in a day, and there's only so much time in a lifetime. There's only so much time you can spend. I have this problem. It's a major problem. I have so many loves. I love business and managing my team and helping them to operate at the highest level, but I also love to read and write. I also love to play piano, and I also love to make beef jerky, and I also love going to the gym, but I also love starting new businesses. And it never ends because I just love progress. I love doing stuff. I love the excitement of just like making more of your life. But you know what I love to do quite often more than any of that other stuff that I love? In the moment, I love to do literally nothing. I love to sit. I love to watch TV, scroll on TikTok, wake up late, just nothing. However, I hardly ever make the do nothing choice. I sometimes do, but hardly. And this brings me back to what the artist said. Sometimes she'd rather do things, but she didn't. She just didn't do them. Working towards your goal isn't going to be sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes, a lot of the time, you're not going to want to do it. Sometimes it's going to totally suck. It's going to be the last thing you want to do. There are going to be parts of it that you just don't enjoy, that you're going to have to suffer through. If you want to achieve your goals, you have to choose that suffering every day, just like you choose your sacrifices. And this might sound terrible, but here's the thing. If you don't choose your sacrifices and choose your suffering, they get chosen for you. Instead of working towards your goal, you sacrifice your goal to watch whatever's trending on Netflix, stuff that you probably won't even remember next week. Instead of suffering through the hard work and fear of failure, you suffer through watching time slip by yet again, and you don't get what you want. Which is worse? When you look at it this way, you really have no choice but to try, do you? Well, except for one little thing. It doesn't matter where you look, self-help, motivation videos, how-to guides, you're always told the same thing. Never give up, never quit. Keep going hard, no matter what. And when it gets painful, and when you're sweating blood, sweat some more blood. Just don't give up, because then you're a quitter. And there's nothing worse than being a quitter. Even Batman says it.
I never give up.
Now, caveat, this is coming from someone who's not qualified to give quitting advice. This is probably my biggest flaw. It's prevented me from more success than anything else in life by far. The sunk cost fallacy and not knowing when to quit, not knowing when to give up on stuff. The sunk cost fallacy is whereby spending time, effort, or money on something, you're more likely to keep doing it, even if it's a waste, because, hey, I've already spent so much on it. Why not spend a little bit more? I have wasted so much time, effort, and money on the wrong businesses, investments, and people so many times in my life. It's actually embarrassing. It's because I have this dumb belief that I can just fix everything. If I just keep pushing, keep working, things will eventually pan out. And sometimes that's true, but usually it's not. Usually it's a complete waste. Now, I have figured out one trick that helps me get out of this sunk cost hole. I'll explain that in a minute, because first we need to zoom back out to goals more broadly. As you go through life, you're going to receive all kinds of information, do all kinds of growing and maturing. You're going to change. That means what you're interested in, that's going to change as well. This means your goals might change, or at the very least grow and evolve in ways that you never expected. I had a friend who spent years training to be a professional video gamer. He even dropped out of high school to pursue this, and this was like 10 years ago when it wasn't nearly as popular, it didn't pay as well. It was crazy. All he did though was study and work to get better. And of course, he was amazing at it. Until one day, he just quit. His heart wasn't in it anymore. It shocked everyone. He realized this and just scrapped the whole ambition. He's since dedicated himself to programming, and he started a business and makes amazing money, like ridiculous money. I've never seen him happier. But why? Because what he wanted changed, and he was okay with quitting to follow it. I wish I was that good at quitting. So how do you know when to quit? Here's the only trick that's ever worked for me. Whether it's a goal, business, or relationship, I ask myself, if I knew everything I know now about this thing, would I have started it in the first place? If the answer is no, you gotta get out ASAP. It's bulletproof. And it stops you from suffering away with something that you thought you enjoyed, but you no longer do. Now, not everything is quite that extreme. If it's more subtle, simply ask yourself if this thing is actually making you happy, if this thing is harming you in any way, and most importantly, if you're obsessed about this thing, because you need to be obsessed about your goals. Quitting can mean freeing you up to try something else that does check all of your boxes. Pay attention to your obsession. It'll go a long way. By now you've probably noticed a theme. Success is really only exciting in our fantasies, where we get to ball out on coke, buy a mansion, and wrestle a pet tiger in a pool of champagne. In reality, success is boring. It's born out of small habits that build small systems that we repeat each and every day, over and over, across years. Then we eventually die and people say, wow, that guy did a lot of stuff. There's no secret. It's all about how you choose to live each day of your life. Don't take my word for it. Just listen to how Khabib, one of the greatest MMA fighters of all time, describes how he did it.
You have to train every day. You have to do same thing. Sparring, grappling, wrestling, running, like meets, bag, every single day.
He did the same thing every day, running, training, bag work. In other words, a system of training habits that forged him day by day into a great fighter, into one of the greatest fighters. This is where most people slip up. They don't want to live a boring life, and their ego doesn't want to accept how long it takes to get great results. Nothing's gonna happen overnight. You gotta forget about luck. You gotta forget about just being good at stuff right away. It doesn't work that way. Like I said, I sucked at everything that I'm now good at. Your ego has to accept that. You have to accept that. Then you wake up and you do the same system every day over and over again. Your system. Some days it might be boring, but it's a boring that you get to choose, and it actually works. It's slowly making you better. I do 90% of the same things every day, even on weekends. I wake up, I write down my goals, I journal, I read, I go to the gym, play piano, and then start work around 9:30 a.m. I work until around 7, and then I relax and hang out a bit before I go to bed, and then I just do it all over again. That's my life, and that's the way I've set it up to hit all the goals that I want to hit. I work with another guy who structures his time every day into blocks dedicated to specific goals that he's trying to achieve. This allows him to work full-time while simultaneously writing a novel. Your goals are possible. And that's scary to think about, but they're actually possible. Even your big ones, even the ones that you don't tell anyone about. And this is why, beyond all of the advice in this video, there's one thing that you should take away with you. Achieving your goals isn't about being super driven or special or super hardworking. It's about choosing how you live each day, hour by hour, moment by moment. If you make the right sacrifices every day, you will achieve your goals. If you build the right systems of habits and implement them every day, you will achieve your goals. If you stop thinking about your future dream and change the way you live today, you will achieve your goal. So what are you waiting for?